I want to pass around the announcement for our Legacy of Excellence Award presentations.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So you can see Bob Olson's smiling face there. And the title of this talk, it's going to be on March 24th. And it's going to be at 12 o'clock in the Q518, you know, that big room up there. There should be some refreshments following. And so we're really proud to present that. And that's part of the, what do they call that? The Week of Excellence, the Week of Excellence. So that'll be our next meeting. Will be on the March 24th. We'll use
That's
that
our next meeting?
Our March meeting. And then we have, what's it, the first week of April, we have the provost coming in.
7th?
Yeah, I think that's right. That first Tuesday in April, I think it is.
So is the provost going to be kind of a question and answer, or
Yeah,
they going to be talking about something specific?
Whatever we want.
you got that on the calendar, Nick?
Yeah, the 7th, 10
Okay.
o'clock.
Okay. I'm going to try and get the other room because I suspect we'll have a little bit better turnout.
Yeah.
Don't take that personally, Angela. But at any rate, no, we're really pleased to have you here today. And I'll introduce Angela Mitchell. And Jeannie, I didn't catch your last name.
Bennett.
Bennett. Okay, thank you. And Angela is the director of the writing program, and she's going to talk about AI and writing and some research and how that's going to fit in with the WSU system. And what she doesn't know, I'm sure she's just going to shift over to Jeannie to help fill out. We now know that Jeannie has a STEM background, which I spent all my career in the College of Veterinary Medicine and College of Ag.
Nice.
So I worked in public health at times, but on the farm side. So on the just immediately post-harvest kind of problem. But at any rate, any questions before we get started or comments?
I do a little brief intro.
Oh, yes, let's do that. That's a great thing.
Dick Zellers. I'm Professor Emeritus from Chemical Engineering. I've been retired 10 years.
Emerita Kwok, late of psychology. I've been retired for 2.5 years.
Sue Gill from the Department of Accounting, almost a year.
Alex Hammond, Department of English and American Studies, and retired since 2000. And seems forever.
It was just yesterday.
I'm Alan Gens from the math department, retired 8 years.
I'm Des O'Rourke from a defunct profession, the ag economic profession. Now we are now part of the School of Economic Sciences, so we're more distinguished.
And I'm Keith Blattner. I retired from School of the Environment in 2018, but stayed around another 4 years part-time.
Nick Loveridge from the School of Politics, Philosophy, and Public Affairs. I came in 77, retired in 2012. And my area is public administration, public policy.
Wonderful. And Stephen?
Yeah, I'm Stephen Steer, retired from the School of Politics like Nick. And I've been retired 10 months.
And Sally, are you on? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm here. Sally Horton, WSU Extension and Human Development. And I've broken my foot, or I'd be there having a donut with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
And I think that's all we have on Zoom that I can tell so far. I know a
I'm
couple
here.
people. Oh,
Gisela
Okay,
Ernst
wonderful.
Lavitt. Can you hear me?
yes, we can. Thank you.
Gisela Ernst Lavitt, Washington State University, Vancouver. And I started my career in Pullman and then transferred to Vancouver. I'm a professor emerita from the College of Education, and I retired in 2022.
Welcome.
Hi.
And anybody else? It just shows me two. That's why I was a little bit confused. But go ahead. Is there anybody else on Zoom we missed? All right, wonderful.
Hey, Larry.
Okay. Yes.
Larry, can I also note that I read for the writing portfolio for years before the
Oh, wonderful.
pandemic.
I did too,
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I
great
read
to
in the
know.
late 90s.
Yeah.
I read about 15 years worth.
Wow.
I did about 5.
Wow.
Wow. So
Well,
we
we
got
had
20
some-
years worth of experience.
Yeah.
All on
That's
AI.
awesome.
I did it back when you read for the portfolio over in Avery,
Yeah.
before the
All
queue was
paper,
built.
yeah.
Yep.
That's where I started.
When did that requirement start? Was that with LEH? or
Well, I
something?
came here in 94, and I think either my first or second year I was reading for the portfolio. It was new, pretty new
Yeah,
at
pretty
the
new. It was like
time.
89, 90. It
That's-
took a little, it came from some legislature and it took a little while to
Yeah.
get embedded, but it was around
Mhm.
that time. And we, I do facilitate the portfolio. Just a little overview of where we're positioned. We're in the writing program. We're over in the queue. We report to the provost's office. We're under DASA. So I report to Bill Davis. I facilitate placement, writing placement for students coming in for English 101, and we facilitate the portfolio. I do norming and training of the readers and all of that organization. And we have had to add an AI question, which I can talk about in a minute. And we also, another big part of my job is to do faculty development. And so right now we have the Words Fellows for the springtime, and we're meeting with them once a week and talking about designing assignments and kind of best practices for teaching writing. Many of them are engaged in AI and in what they're doing. And so we're having lots of conversations about that. And I also oversee the Writing Center, and I was thrilled to have Jeannie join us as the director in January. And she's just hit the ground running, and her background in professional and tech writing, and kind of recently being a faculty member here on campus has been really helpful in helping us figure out sort of the challenges and some of the affordances perhaps with AI. I would say that in general, sometimes I wish I were retired before AI happened. I've been a writing studies faculty member and administrator of writing programs for 25, more than that, years. And it seems here sometimes overwhelming for AI to come in, for it to be happening so quickly, for us to have to figure out our disciplinary best practices through the MLA and the 4 Cs are our main disciplinary organizations, and then kind of really deal with best practices, being mindful and thoughtful about how we're using it, a critical use of it. And that's happening at the same time that there are enormous institutional pressures, not just here, but with my colleagues all over the country, to integrate AI into writing. And so it's a challenging time. It's always a challenging time to be a writing professor, but this is a particularly challenging time, and the speed of change. The speed of change. So sometimes I wish I were retired.
Is the writing program required for all?
I'm sorry?
Is the writing program required for all students, or is it
So
one you sign up for?
Yeah, so the writing program is not a department. We run out of the provost's office, and the portfolio is required as a graduation requirement. As part of the portfolio, if students don't pass that, they take a course called Write 302, which we design and run and teach for those students to give them a little extra support as they move into their major. And then we facilitate placement essentially for the English department for 101. And we do all that through a new platform called Slate. It's not on paper anymore. We've got everything. For a while, we went to Qualtrics, and now we're in Slate. And it has some interesting functionality for us to do queries. And so one of the things that we did in the fall, I have a writing program assessment committee, and we looked at the policy that the provost's office sent out about AI, which essentially allows professors and departments to determine how they want to use it. And as long as it's explicit and clear and transparent, there's no kind of guardrails on what you want to do. And so I see working with faculty, see a lot of different ways faculties are using it or not using it. So for the portfolio, we take 2 samples of writing and reflection questions from students from all different majors and who have taken all different kinds of classes. And so we see a range of things with AI. So in the fall, we instituted a series of drop-down questions. Did you use AI for this paper? Were you allowed to use AI for this paper? Did your instructor give you, really trying to help us figure out what guidance or guardrails the student had about using AI. We want to make sure that we are allowing for the freedom of academic integrity for all the professors who are using it, but we also want to have an idea of whether students have used AI in that paper. And the reflection questions are often very helpful in that regard. So right now I'm working on building a query with the Slate team to try to pull all the students who say yes, so that we can do some hopefully IRB research on looking at what that looks like. That's something Jeannie's gonna do with me. So we're looking to see about the impact on the portfolio. The English department is really in charge of the placement questions and the readings, and they have not yet decided anything in regards to AI for placement, but it's a conversation that we have on the calendar to do in March. Last year, they decided not to add a question or do anything with it. There is a note saying we do not want you to use AI for the English placement because it kind of would impact our real understanding of where that student needs to be placed in order to best succeed. And we're trying to follow the first year writing guidelines for not encouraging students to use AI in their classrooms right now. Broadly, from the first year writing directors, that you were the assistant first year writing directors. That's pretty accurate about where they are now. It's a changing field all the time. So we're looking at that and dealing with that. We're getting questions from all over the place. For instance, the global campus got in touch with me last fall. This was the one time I've said no about anything. And I questioned whether I should say no, but then one of their learning, what are the folks who they create the websites? Instructional designers got in touch and said, can you tell me about automated grading platforms that we could use? One of the classes I'm building is going to have automated grading. And so I sent them a whole long email of best practices in our discipline, which does not at this time support automatic grading. And I never heard back from them. So I don't think they were really happy with my response. But at the end of the day, I'm leaning on our best practices to help in situations like that. Our field is not ready really to embrace automatic grading.
So how would the automatic grading work? I'm trying to.
So there are platforms, and I mean, you can do this too with just ChatGPT. You can feed a paper in and say, give me feedback on that. So there are automatic grading platforms that students could pay a fee to have to use, and the instructor just puts their papers into that. And so that's not something we are supporting at the moment. It's kind of a balance because institutionally, and when the provost comes, he might talk to you about this, it's an important initiative for them to integrate AI. And
that's one of the things we wanted them to talk about.
Yeah,
is how this is happening. Now we'll have a much better set of questions we can ask them.
But you have to integrate some criteria to evaluate.
Right, right.
I assume grammar, syntax.
Rubric, you can feed a rubric in and it can do that work for you. And there are platforms that are specifically designed to do that. So we're not ready yet to support that. I don't know if the institution is, or this was just a one-off, but we are thinking about ways, I think particularly when you think about the workforce, students are going to graduate in certain professions, probably a lot of them, where they're going to go into a workforce where they have to use AI. So I can certainly understand the need for different disciplines to integrate AI in the ways that they can best foresee the students might have to use it in their profession. And we are happy to help faculty think through some of those issues and what they want to do. but it's tricky, and I talk to faculty all the time, and everybody's all over the place. There's kind of, you know, some people are what we call in the discipline boosters. They're AI boosters. They just kind of love the possibilities and are excited by it and are really into it. And then you've got people who we call the resistors, right? They just know none of it, right? And then a lot of us are kind of what we call in our field the unsettled middle, right?
Yes.
And we're unsettled because we're in positions where we have to. We're unsettled because we don't understand everything and the platforms that emerge all the time. We're unsettled ethically, not just in terms of student work, but also in terms of sustainability and energy and all of these different things. And so it's something that I think I have a band at my home with my husband who's on research sabbatical now. He's a historian. He's like, let's talk about AI tonight. I'm like, no. Like 5 o'clock, I do not want to talk about AI. I gotta talk about it all day, right? So it can be, I think, when we're trying to figure out the way that we might recommend the best path forward for folks, it really varies based on the discipline that they're in, what they're interested in doing. And the thing that I just keep saying over and over, and you can chime in anytime, is my biggest concern with AI is, and I'll tell you a pro and I'll tell you a con. The con for me is the way it might impact critical thinking. And in our field, we talk a lot about writing to learn. You learn the material by writing messily about it for a while, you know, and that is something that I think we have to be very mindful of. I do think that writing can have a huge cognitive overload for students. And so the way that AI might be used to show them what a genre looks like, to let them see. It's very good with genre. It's good with formatting. It's good with editing. If there's some way that it can reduce the cognitive overload for students so they can spend a lot more time on the critical thinking pieces and the gathering the evidence and the thinking through the evidence and the synthesizing it, I think I could imagine a world where students might be able to spend more time on the things that really matter, right, in terms of their learning. But it's tricky because writing is recursive and iterative, and it's all embedded together, right? So I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit? We're seeing some interesting things in the Writing Center. Do you want to talk about a few of the experiences you've had? Jeannie's only been working since January 16th.
Yeah.
She's seen a few things.
Well, there's a lot I could talk about with AI, because I think depending on the kind of writing that we're talking about and the level, and like you said, the discipline, it's different. The best practices would be different, but I'm still keeping up with the research, which is hard to do because there's so much of it, but a lot of research shows how problematic AI detectors are. And that's one of the things in the center we've been seeing. We haven't seen too many students yet who are coming in saying, I'm writing with AI and I want help. Although I think that is something that I would like to encourage students to do. Because if they're going to use it, I'd rather them use it with guidance and peer mentoring. But that's kind of further down the road. What we are seeing are frustrations from students who have come in to work on, doing the work in the Writing Center to work on their papers, and their professors are using AI detectors, and they have sort of these monolithic, I don't know if that's the right word, policies. Well, they'll say, I won't even read this. I won't even grade this until you get a 0 on an AI detector. And that, me saying very politely, shows that this person is not very familiar with how AI detectors work, and that there are a lot of issues with them. I mean, there are a lot of writers, you could take your writing. If you've been a successful academic for a long time, you're going to get a high score. It's not even really a score on the AI detector. So we're seeing some frustration from students who don't really know how to communicate back with their professors. And the professors are like, they're sending the students other AI detectors. It's like, nope, our policy is, whoever came up with it, that you have to get a 0 on this AI detector before we even will grade your work or whatever. And that's sometimes impossible, and it's extremely frustrating for students. AI detectors are not very reliable. There are a lot of situations in which you can get a false positive, and there are situations you can get a false negative. But when you have students at an early academic writing stage, They tend to, there are just certain things in their writing, like repetitiveness, they're like repetitive patterns as
Right.
they're learning how to write. And you have within that document more repetitive writing, it's going to flag higher as AI, even if it's not AI itself. So we're kind of in a weird ethical mushy place where we want to help the student write better and we want to help them succeed, and there are things that we could do to address issues in the writing, but we also don't want to be perceived as helping people humanize AI text. So there's a lot of tensions there that I'm not really sure how to proceed yet, but I'm trying to do the research. I'm trying to pay attention, observe, and come up with some ideas. But I came up with that I thought was a pretty good training handout that we're going to be training our consultants on. But immediately they too were concerned with, I don't want students coming in here with AI text thinking I'm going to help them humanize it. I'm like, well, this is really more for people who are falsely flagged. But at the same time, nowadays it's really hard to tell if something's really falsely flagged or something actually written by AI. It's getting to where it's almost indistinguishable at some point. I think depending on how well they've used AI, I mean, I think for those of us who have PhDs in writing studies, there's some things that might, if you're not using it well, it's obvious. But if you're using it really well, it's hard to tell. So
I'll pass on one thing. I have a friend over in University of Idaho in history, and I asked her how she was dealing with AI in her class because she requires a lot of writing. And she said that she uses a AI detector, and she has no problems with students using AI, but they have to reference it.
mhm.
So as long as they reference it, just like you'd be referencing, some journal article or whatever you were referencing, she has no problem with it. And so she runs it through that way. So that to me seemed like such a logical way of dealing with it.
And that's what we're doing with the portfolio. Students need to make it transparent. They need to highlight it. They need to let us know where they've used it. They need to know the context for why they used it, particularly as if it was allowed in the paper by the instructor. And then we look at it and we look at all of those things together. So it is, and that is becoming a really common thing to do, is transparently let us know where you've used it. And some folks are allowing it in certain parts of the writing process. Some people tend to want to do it more at the end. Let's do it at the end for editing and for, citation formatting. It's really good for that, right? Some people are using it in the beginning, and that's fine in our field in terms of best practices. That's fine. I would be less likely to do that myself, but again, that is based on the kind of assignments I might be giving and what my learning goals might be for my students and what my history of teaching. It might be very different in a different discipline. So we try to be really, as far as the portfolio goes, open to the differences amongst individual faculty as well as individual disciplines. And so that seems to work best right now. We just never know what's coming with
Yeah, I imagine
it's
so rapidly changing.
I guess I'm very much a novice at AI, but I've started playing with it. And my older son has done a couple things with it that kind of blew my mind. And so I've gone from Nick's category of hell no, never, to fairly enthusiastic about the power that software has. And there's different platforms beside Chat GPT out there. And my son fed his resume through the software and said he was looking for jobs. What are some other jobs other than what I'm doing that I might be qualified for? And he said, well, a lot of them came back ones that I knew about. Then there were some interesting ones that I had never thought about. And then he's got a new job, he's moving, and he wasn't happy with the realtor's assessment of the house value. And he fed a whole bunch of stuff in there down to what streets and whatnot to do comparables on. And he did his own assessment. And from what I could tell, it looked as good or better than what the real estate agent did.
Yeah.
And he's got a meeting with her coming up today, actually.
Right.
So, I mean, it seems to me that AI is going to be an integral part of the workplace environment beyond just writing.
Right.
And I've heard some stuff with music and some other things that was pretty impressive. Seems to me that we need to figure out how to embrace it and actually teach students how to use it appropriately.
And like for us in terms of writing, writing is always situated. It's always contextual. So what is the context that makes this a good use of it, and what platform and what way? I think one of the things that I get hung up on sometimes is privacy issues. So feeding student work into ChatGPT with no guardrails on is just giving the students work, feeding it into that, right? So then I think about FERPA and I think about privacy issues, and and that's some of the issues with automated grading too. It's not just having a machine grade, it's giving a machine the work of a student and requiring that they use that. So there's privacy issues there that I think sometimes are in tension with some of our academic policies about student privacy and confidentiality and student record work that I think some people are doing thinking on, but in large scale, there's not. The other thing that I see happening across the country are certain companies and platforms kind of being taken on by different institutions. So we're like a Microsoft school, but I think there might be other platforms that are going on with it here. But some schools are, really embracing Claude or Gemini or other schools, and they're kind of in bed with those corporations, right?
I love the metaphor.
There's that, which is for those of us in writing studies, we've never really had access to corporate fund. It's interesting, but it's different. It's a different
But you're also
scenario.
getting the opposite. On television yesterday, there was an anti-AI march in London.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-AI march.
It's like we used anti-irradiation, and there's so many. It's like this is a new anti that they have discovered.
Yeah, that's one of my
Scare
concerns. I mean, I think it depends on why we write. There are situations in which we write to learn, like you said, that using AI is not appropriate for. AI looks really impressive, but it's producing a highly tailored template. All it's doing is it's an algorithm saying, okay, given this sequence of words, what is the most likely next string of words going to look like? It's really highly tailored, boilerplate or a template, right? And so there are times when at the workplace, when you're just writing to communicate, that it could be extremely helpful. And those are two different tasks. Writing to learn how we think, writing to communicate are very different. AI is great when you're already working at you have a high level of expertise and for yourself, what is something that truly demands my attention and what is something I need to offload. When you have students at a very early phase of writing, they cannot make that decision. They don't know what to offload and what not, what they need to engage with and grapple and whatnot. And so the tendency could be to overuse it. But as a university, I think it's really important that, yes, we are preparing students for the job, but that's not what we do, all of what we do. We're not a vocational school. We're also here to educate people. We're here to educate citizens. And there are times when I think, yes, we need to show them how to use AI correctly. And there are some writing tasks it could be really useful for if you do it correctly. But there also needs to be places within their education where we put our foot down and say, no, you need to grapple with these things, it's just and I think first year writing is a great example, but I think there should be more. That's just kind of my opinion. And we need to do research as a university instead of like too excitedly adopting and partnering with companies. We should be the ones slowing down and saying, wait, let's do the research. Let's truly think and evaluate this before we implement it. And so I think there's a tension there that is important to me.
I like that.
So
I'm in the opposition group, but I'm like you. I'm learning. There's some really strong things about it. And I like it. But everywhere I go, I'm at that stage in life where I get invited to go and give a talk and so on. We end up talking about AI because it's changing everything. And the graduate students, the new graduate students, they're awash. Some of their professors like it, some hate it. They don't know what the heck to do. And they're really in this unsettled place that's not good for young people. You want them to be optimistic. There's something new. I can make a breakthrough, but now they're afraid. what if I use it and my assignment is thrown away and I
Yeah,
call
but-
in the question and all this, so it's a hard time. This transition time is gonna be really, really tough
But
time.
beyond writing, and I know you guys are writers, I mean, I was talking to Mike Griswold, who's a recently retired Regents professor here, and he still runs a lab, and he's using AI in his gene sequencing stuff. And he was giving me an example, which I won't attempt to repeat, but he said it took what would have taken them several months to winnow all this genetic stuff down to a couple of days.
Yeah.
And as a research tool, as an algorithm to crunch and munch data and do other things, we need to be out there figuring out how to integrate AI in at whatever is the appropriate level. And it's certainly got to be part of graduate education and upper division education. And the Neanderthals like Nick over here go, no way, no how. And we're old friends. I mean, we got to figure out how to get the faculty to even understand what AI is.
Right. And what I see across, I review M syllabi and interacting with faculty through different workshops and things. And there's folks who are really being thoughtful about how to use it. Like there was a pharmacy syllabus I looked at the other day that was having them use AI, but in a critical function, like a critical function of how is AI helping us do this work or not. It was interesting. We have faculty, I had a biology capstone class, I think, that was using AI in conjunction with peer feedback. What kind of feedback do you get from AI? What kind of feedback do you get from peer feedback? Let's talk about the differences there. So, I mean, there's some interesting ways that I think faculty are engaging with it, even on the undergraduate level. But where I see the real extraordinary value of AI is in the professions and professional work and the kind of the things that students will be doing when they graduate and get jobs. And I think we do have an obligation to prepare our students for that world. They'll be prepared somehow for other.
Yeah, now we have disciplines that are really heavily impacted. So I'm thinking about my colleagues in criminal justice. And they're supposed to produce graduates who go into the legal system in the courts or corrections or law enforcement. And they're supposed to use their writing skills to portray the facts of a case. Then the facts become the basis of a court case and so on. They want the kids to write a lot, but now it's very difficult to detect whether it's AI assisted or not. So they're backing away on the very thing that we need, the very thing that led to the requirement of a portfolio in every discipline, this and that. We're backing away from that. And I think that's wrong. And I can be Neanderthal, but I think we have to think it through. What is being lost on that?
We need to think it through, but
what are we losing on that? I'm thinking about the kids that are going pre-law and they're going to law school.
Yeah.
And now Westlaw allows you to write a brief if you have the money.
Yeah.
And it used to be a complicated federal court brief would have 8 or 10 lawyers working on it. Now there's 2, and they get a brief draft for a judge in a particular court, and it's done all the background and proclivities of the judge and preferred citations and all of that. And then a couple of lawyers work on that brief. What do we need as many law schools?
Right, we don't
Probably
need
not.
as many lawyers anymore.
We don't
Is
need
what
as
I'm
many
hearing.
lawyers.
Yeah, or coders. You can pay Claude like $20 a month, and it'll code things for you.
Yeah.
So I think that it's going to shift. It's going to shift. And
Shift a lot.
sometimes it keeps me up at night, but I sort of banned it from my home, so it's okay. But it is also an interesting time, and there are I use AI. The only thing I really use it for is, let's say I'm putting references up on a slide. I'm just trying to crunch this out, right? I'll put the references. I'll cite this correctly in the right form alphabetically, and it's like 30 seconds and it's done, and I'm not sitting there cutting and pasting and moving things around. There is an efficiency sometimes. And so then I could spend more time, and I was terrible in the past with keeping my citations in order. It would spend a lot of time at that point, and now it's just so quick. So there's ways in which we can focus on the things that it can do and to have more time, maybe for me to spend more time thinking through the research questions we're going to go through or whatever, you know. So I definitely see that. I think the health professions, I think anything in science is going to just.
Even down to personal interest. I was hunting for some obscure information on the web, and I Googled it this way and I Googled it that way, and several hours later, I hadn't found what I was looking for. And then I played around, and in 5 minutes, I had the answer. You know, when you think about trying to, just a voluminous amount of literature, whether it's law or biology or whatever, that we plow through writing papers or look for references, and the stuff can compile stuff for a starting point.
Yeah.
So rapidly, it's scary.
I think the tool just needs to match like what it's actually good for, right? Like I can use a screwdriver to open my house. That's probably not a good idea. But you know, we are looking at the literature, and there's a tension there. On one hand, yeah, AI can be very helpful, right, in certain areas, but in terms of writing and learning, it's very different than when you're using it as a tool for something else. And so in terms of writing and learning, we in the literature, there's a tendency for people to be overconfident about what they think they know when they're using an LLM.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of research about this. Yeah. And so the problem is people start not being metacognitive about what they actually know or don't know.
Right.
And Kim Kardashian is a really great example of this. She is trying to get a law degree. She didn't go to law school though. She worked at a law firm, and then she was studying for the bar. She's taken it like 3 times and failed every time. And the last time she was really public about how she used ChatGPT to help her study for the bar exam. And she was super confident going into that test that she knew all of this stuff. But when she got to the bar, she failed it. And she's like, I'm starting to realize now that ChatGPT, I don't know now what really ChatGPT and what I know, right? But there are in the writing world some early emergent research on how we can implement AI in certain writing contexts. I wouldn't say first year writing, but there are strategies you can use to get metacognitive about your use of AI. The problem is, can we get students the buy-in on doing that? Because it is so easy. And I can't begrudge them. I love writing. It's, you know, it's hard enough for me. Can you imagine for some people, like it's the engineers I used to teach, they truly have a real difficulty sometimes. And sometimes they have almost trauma from being told they're crap writers their whole, you know what I mean? Right. And so to get them to buy in a very high stakes environment of higher education of doing these strategies rather than just, oh my gosh, get it off my plate because I can't stand it, that's, I think, going to be a trick, you know. I thought went off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Do we have any questions from Zoom? Don't mean to keep you out. I know, Michael, you've had some complaints about AI writing in the past with your assignments, and Steve, any comments, any questions?
Well, I appreciate the desire to be retired before the onset of disaster.
Best job in the world.
And I just made it.
You just made it.
Yeah, I have a rather backwards question about AI. The first big help was somebody giving me information, researching through AI on some film version of Shakespeare plays. And so she was very proud to present all this information that was going to be a great help to me. And a good bit of it was wrong.
Yeah.
So I imagine AI is self-correcting very quickly, like the Borg. But are we past the garbage in phase with it?
I don't know. I think that the hallucinations, according to research that I've read, are not going to go away. They're an actual feature of it. And so the hallucinations, and the thing is, and I very much agree with Jenny that you can use it more effectively the more you know about that topic, right? The more you really understand. Like I've put stuff into AI, like for personal reasons. I don't even know. It like came up like. This is the other thing is AI is integrated in so many things. Like I just put it into a Google, a question about a music band that I like playing on New Year's Eve, and it the AI came up saying they never plan New Year's Eve. And I'm like, well, I've been to 10 shows on New Year's Eve. Like, that's just wrong. I'm an expert. I know. Right. And I think that happens a lot if you don't know what it's giving you. And then the hallucinations kind of, they happen the more often you're using it, working through kind of a larger project, it will start hallucinating and saying crazy things. But if you don't understand that those are hallucinations, as a student in particular, you might be using them, and then it gets very strange. So I'm not sure the hallucinations will ever go away, according to what I somewhat understand about
It's
that.
not just hallucination. I saw one that was done on cherries. And they assumed that Michigan was a big cherry producer, Northwest was big, but Michigan produces completely different kind of cherry, tart cherry, which you normally go into pies and process. But it didn't recognize the difference.
Well, it's, you have to use it with caution.
I
But
think
still.
that to bring up the Borg reference, I'll just say that I know that Jean-Luc Picard destroyed the Borg with his critical thinking.
Yes, exactly. So that's what's disturbing. I was in English, and so the death of critical thinking is to be lamented.
You know, someone asked me, are we past the garbage in phase? And to me, we're just starting the garbage in, because what AI does is it goes out and looks at all the stuff that's written and then tries to make sense of it.
It's allowed to look at.
We know there's a lot of stuff out there that
And there's
is wrong,
putting new
and
stuff
sometimes
out.
deliberately wrong.
Deliberately wrong, that's racist, that's biased, and it's picking all of that up.
And I don't see that slowing down. I see AI making more and more of that.
And many of the studies I've seen where they tried to reproduce research results couldn't do it. So in other words, if you're using 100 previous papers, probably only 25% of them can be reproduced, that they're really accurate in that field.
Yeah, that's really key.
So in December, I went to Arizona, and the outstanding Washington State University Alumnus of the Year, Michael Reisig, was being honored. And there's 1,000 Cougars in Phoenix, and so they had an event. And I said, Dr. Loveridge, why don't you go down and give him this award? So Catherine and I went down. We spent a couple of days, and I asked Mike, how are you using AI? He says, well, I don't write letters of recommendation anymore. And I, Neanderthal Nick, I just died. How can you not know your students and want to write about your personal connection with this human being, and you watch them mature in your discipline? How could you not write a letter? And I was dumbfounded. He says, well, I got more important things to do. I think we all have more important things to do, and the substitution of your opinion on paper in your words to somebody else who's making a decision for admission or whatever, I don't think that's a trivial thing. I think it's a big loss. And I know he's not callous about this. He said, I just did a calculation and I could get a grant, or I could do something with that time, and I just put in, write me something for Jorge Gonzalez, and it'll say something nice about Jorge, and the job is done. But that doesn't really indicate any degree of connection, human connection. There's another event yesterday. I went to see my doctor. She's only 50 years old. She's retiring. And she asked me, can I put on the AI thing while we're talking? And so
the transcript.
And so whatever she tells me is going to be cross-checked, and that's how medical insurance companies work these days. And then they'll grade her on her accuracy and this and that. And I asked her in a previous meeting, why are you retiring early? 2 reasons. My husband's older and we need to travel. But number 2, I don't like this kind of medicine. And pretty soon you won't have a primary care physician who actually knows you. You'll have an intake person who's a registered nurse or practical nurse or something, and maybe not even that, maybe just talk to the computer and say how you're feeling or whatever. I mean, I think we're losing something, and I think it's great that we can find an obscure fact in 2 minutes. That's great, but that's also a form of laziness in my view.
Sorry.
quote Star Trek again.
Star Trek
Because we
again.
must do a thing. Doesn't necessarily follow that we should do that thing.
So where is the future here? Or maybe Alex should go first.
What's up? I put AI question. What's the future? I had a couple of concrete things, but one is you guys both have portraits of pictures of Hal in your office doors. Do people not recognize Hal?
Hal. He needs to open the pod door.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Hal,
Yes.
yeah.
Hal.
Much more concretely, I want to start with when you ask students in evaluating their writing to not use AI. How does that work? That is, do you have what confidence do you have that in fact what you're looking at in an assessment of they're going in the writing program, they're taking 101. How do you do that?
I think it depends. If they're using it really well, you can't tell. I mean, AI writing is becoming almost indistinguishable from human writing. But if they're not using it well at an early stage, even if you couldn't really tell the difference, the writing would be such that you'd still probably place them in 101, right? But AI writing tends to be extremely generic. There's not a lot of specifics, the things that we look for, like citations, use of evidence, it lacks those things because it's really boilerplate. So I think a close placement reader, even if you couldn't prove it's AI, could know that they're still not demonstrating the skills that they need at certain levels, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, that was the reason for the question.
Okay.
I've heard of one foolproof way of avoiding AI in writing. Just bring the students into a room, give them a blue book and a pen.
Yeah,
Blue book, yeah.
The issue with that
You
is
write
we
it
do
here.
Right.
have students with disabilities that may not be able to, because then we're precluding a group of people, right, from inclusion. So there are people with dysgraphia, for example, who would not be able to do that. There are neurodivergent students who are autistic, for example, who might not think well through writing, but well through typing. So I know a lot of people have wanted to go push back to that age, and there's and I understand that, but and people also are getting rid of writing. They're not, they're having people do more tests now than writing. So I think some of that is
the way that writing really functions in the world, how it might function, what they actually have to do in the workplace. They're gonna have to write in the workplace in some degree, right? And so when you're using blue books, that's not an authentic writing situation for your students, right? It's not one that's going to transpose or transfer to a future real writing situation. So that's one of the things about.
Well, I'm not clear why not.
Because
Nobody can read script anymore, and I go on to answer because I have a follow-up question.
well, no, I would just say that
Keyboarded in so it can spell.
Yeah,
check.
the blue book is an example, but you can put people in front of, 40 terminals. 40 people in front of 40
And they
terminals.
type their own.
So it doesn't have to be just script.
Well,
But
no,
go
I
ahead,
wasn't
go
really
ahead.
thinking about it
Yeah.
that way. I was thinking that the kind of writing that is authentic writing situations are not a timed writing, it's not a timed writing test
With no
essay
resources.
exam. Right. It's going to be more project-based. It's going to be more scaffolded. It's going to be things that they have to look at references for. It's just not how we write anymore, right? It may be a good way to test certain kind of knowledge, but it's not helping students learn to write in ways that they might transfer to a future writing situation, which for us in our discipline is one of the most important things that we try to encourage faculty to help their students be
The
able to do.
bottom line for me, though, is that
Yeah.
if you're using it for engineering, using it for medicine, will the bridge fall down? Or will you die on the operating, as many of us do?
Or will you get insurance paid?
The payoff, yes.
Yeah, but partially related to that, and you give examples of law firms. I have a brother-in-law who has talked to me about how it works in his particular practice, and it's spreading kind of everywhere. But one of the places it's spreading, and I want to ask about when you talk about workplace, the one has a sense that certain kinds of workplaces are, in fact, not going to be available to students, no matter what the preparation, because that sort of level. At his particular example is paralegals. They used to do the kind of things that the in fact, sort of mechanical efficient things that the AI things that it uses can just churn out more cheaply. But again, the examples you have of professionals who can look at that stuff and say, that's an hallucination, that's crazy, you're making it up because you want to make me happy. That kind of but one of the points he made is often lawyers come out of paralegal internships and they're going to all go away. And so you're going to have sort of an aging generation, one, and who are you going to feed into? Kim Kardashian, I think, is maybe kind of an example. When you talk about workplace and what they're going to encounter, my question is, do they recognize when they come out of this kind of environment and they want kind of professional level, career level, starting jobs, they're going to go away.
Right, they're not going to be there.
Or they're going to change. So I'm from accounting, and accounting has changed a lot over the years, from when it was 2 columns of numbers that tied together to calculators to Excel to AI. And what a lot of the firms were telling us in the last couple of years is the entry-level students now need to function more like a second year, because they're not pulling a random sample of invoices. They're connecting computers to the client and searching their entire database and getting, finding numbers that look off and everything. And so they're going to be needing to do more analytical work that way, as opposed to pulling pieces of paper and verifying that they exist. And that has happened in accounting a lot. I mean, when Excel came in and could do all kinds of functions, it was more interpretive. So a lot of things are just, so the entry level, people have been saying for the 31 years I've taught here, oh, accounting's going away, computers are going to do this. Computers, could do data entry. AI can do some collections of data, but what it meant along the way is the profession and the expectations changed along with it. So what that's going to end up being for like a net loss, or is it just, a change and you're now adding value in a different way?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to say we don't want to engage it. Everybody has to engage it. We still are in that unsettled middle where we don't know exactly how much more it's going to go. I run an experiment. One of the same students said, Nick, why don't you just ask ChatGPT to write you a 2-page bio sketch? Because when you go give a talk, someone's going to get that job. So and they'll say, oh, I don't know this guy. So I'll look him up and here it is. See what you get. So when I started, it was mostly wrong. Mostly hallucinatory. I did my degree here. I did, nothing made sense. It made sense only in that random facts could be assembled in a certain way in a pattern. So the last time I did it, I'm going to do a memoir, and it's for my 30 PhD students, and they all want to be in the book. But anyway, I asked it to do the thing again after this is 2.5 years of this periodic query. And it came back, son of Croatian immigrants, played baseball, went to Stanford. It had the whole life story and accomplishments and this and that and whatever. And it was actually accurate. So the machine learning is occurring. It's broadening its reach. It's accessed that oral history, and so picked up some of that and stuck it in there. So it did a narrative. That's not just assembling facts anymore. That's creating a story.
A story, yeah.
That's really different. And it scared me, because that's probably what's going to be the easiest thing for people to do now is give me a story to introduce this person. They won't look, they won't check it out. They won't read a single thing that was written by your mind and thinking about it for a long time. I remember as a teaching assistant at UCLA 100 years ago, I found out that none of the students really understood the textbook. They didn't understand what Professor Gerberding was talking about, and I could elucidate it in a section for them, and they were very grateful. I think we've just gotten worse. Ability to read original text, read something Dante wrote if you're an Italian scholar. I mean, the words themselves have a beauty, and we're not doing that. It's okay. What do I need to know about Dante? And then I memorize that. And you don't really know it. It's just, it's there in your brain for a while, but you didn't really think it through or get there through any thought process. I don't know how you are coping.
Well, I'd love to come back sometime maybe and talk more about it. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, and we,
Yeah,
I still have another meeting and I've got another meeting. So
I told them I might be a little late. I said, I think this is gonna be fun.
I've really enjoyed this and I would love to come back and maybe we could talk more about it. I could bring some of the research I was referencing and we could talk some of those issues and how it might, it's different in different professions. It's interesting to see if it maps on writing or not. So if y'all get some time in your